Well, hi everybody. You got that buzzsaw. This is Hurricane Dorian now moving over Great Abaco Island, and it is just incredible here. We're down to the last pressure that I saw was 913 millibars, which brings it very close to Maria's minimum, which I believe was down at around 905 or so. And also with the sustained wind being carried in the advisory of 180 miles an hour, that is the second strongest with Hurricane Allen back in 1980 in the Gulf of Mexico at 190 mile an hour sustained winds. And this is just has been one incredible historic meteorological experience. So that pinprick eye is amazing. Now, a couple of things. First off, the westward motion continues. I think that's pretty clear. And by the way, this is a floater imagery, so when you look at these, remember that the geography shifts. The storm kind of stays near the middle of the picture. The geography itself shifts as the storm moves along. So it sometimes can be a little deceiving in terms of what actual motion you're seeing. But in this case, we are definitely seeing a continued westward motion. It should start to slow down considerably. One thing I want to just bring up is the storm's strength. It's so on the edge of the scale that you wonder whether its own momentum might carry it along a bit further westward than what's modeled. I'm just putting I'm just putting it out there. These things sometimes can, from their own strength, can wind up doing a few unusual things, including bouncing off various geographic points. Probably won't happen so much here because terrain in the Bahamas are relatively flat as opposed to some of the mountainous islands that you see out in the Caribbean. But nonetheless, they're going to get hammered here through the northern Bahamas over the next 48 hours. And there will be catastrophic conditions out of this. Right now in Florida, by the way, you can see how clear it is along the Florida East Coast. It's pretty quiet. And looking at some of these obs, Palm Beach right now is 90 degrees with a dew point of 73 and a north-northeast wind at 12. The weather here is very uneventful. 90 also at Fort Lauderdale with a north-northeast wind at 7. And you can see the radar echoes here where the eye of Dorian is out to the east, just now crossing over on Great Abaco Island. And then, of course, Grand Bahama Island is next. So nothing of consequence going on there. We do have an observation here from Settlement Point. So that's on the western end of Grand Bahama, is north at 28 miles an hour. I don't know why it does this. Oh, maybe because, and that's another thing. I'm doing this without a mouse right now, so it's a little bit, I'm maneuvering in a bit of a different way, and I'm not quite used to it. Let's see if I can make this a little smaller. I was hoping to get a few more observations, and Nassau is another one that's on there, but you're going to see a lot of stations here just simply not going to report, and they're west at 16 miles an hour, so they're not even very close to where the eye of Dorian is. Just to see if anything else pops up here in terms of observations. And nope, not seeing it. Okay, so we'll move along at this point. And here's the official Hurricane Center forecast, which I'm sure you've seen. Now they've added hurricane watches up north of Sebastian Inlet, and also you've got tropical storm watches south of Deerfield Beach. Now, the Hurricane Center is probably kind of tucked it in, maybe a shade further to the west. But it looks like the center is going to pass just offshore. But as it moves northward, and you're never going to keep this peak intensity after it makes the turn and moves northward, you're going to see those pressures come up. But you are also going to see the wind field expand and the gales expand and the rain area slowly expand on the western side. And that's going to have implications going forward for coastal Georgia, and then, of course, to a greater extent, South and North Carolina. It looks like the Hurricane Center wants to take this right, very close to the Outer Banks, and we're going to be definitely playing another game. This is going to be a threading the needle situation through much of this coming week. It's going to make things very difficult to deal with. The Melbourne radar, some scattered showers coming in. You can actually see a heavier squall band that is to the east of Fort Pierce and West Palm Beach that is moving westward, but it's well offshore. And then you look at the Miami radar and you see some of the echoes moving north to south. So you're getting the western side of the circulation certainly coming into view on the radar shot here. And the reconnaissance aircraft is trying to find, where's the plane icon? Where'd he go? I think he's right down in the lower right corner underneath some of those other obs, getting ready maybe to make another pass. But the pressure passes went 928, 921, 915. And the last time on this was at 18 minutes after 12 noon. So this is from 6 minutes ago. We're still probably going to see another pass. You can see that the motion is a little bit north of due west, right near 26.5, and about, I'm just going to estimate, about 76.7 is where it is, or 76.8. So just getting ready to cross over 77 degrees west. All right, so let's look. We got enough of the new GFS out, so we can take a look at this. And here at this point, from this point on, these models are very, very close. The Icon model actually is now just offshore after many, many runs of showing it inland. It's literally just barely off the coast. And going forward, we have, first off, we have a cold front that is coming through here for Monday. I'm going to just back it up and we'll take a look at this. So this is the first short wave that is going to be moving through, and it creates, hold on, there we go. So here's the cold front that comes through on Monday. It's relatively weak, and it has maybe some showers and storms with it for us. Dorian, at this point, as the northern part of that jet drops down into North Carolina, you have that opening now, the back side of the ridge on both sides, the opening in the middle. So Dorian is going to respond to that by starting to move very, very slowly northward. It may not do it immediately. It could wind up stalling for a very short period of time. That would not at all be a surprise, but then it should carry along and then start moving away to the north. So I'm sorry, my computer's like going crazy here, so just bear with me. All right, so from there you have the second cold front now that comes in Wednesday night. Now this is going to be the driver really that starts to pull this up more northeast. I've got that arrow too close to the coast. Let me fix that. So it'll probably straddle the Carolinas and then head on out to the northeast like this. That's probably what I think is going to happen. And when we run this through, you'll notice, and one of the things I noticed last night when I was looking at this was it kind of looks like a storm in the wintertime where you're looking at it and hoping that the back edge would be about 60 miles further to the west. And I think this is the kind of what we're seeing here is a very wrapped up low. And usually when these storms reach this latitude, they start to morph slowly because they're eventually going to transition into these post-tropical systems. And as a result, you start to see the wind field expand. And clearly when you look at it here and you see how tight the isobars are, and then look what happens when it gets up into North Carolina, how the isobars spread out. So your top winds are going to drop off, but you're going to have a much larger area of gales, and it's going to expand even further, although still remaining relatively tight as it passes east of Delmarva and well south of Long Island. If this track verifies, we would probably be on the northern edge of rain from New Jersey to southern New England, and maybe southernmost New Jersey briefly gets into some heavier rain. And of course, you see the heavy rains that are going to be going on in North Carolina and in southeastern Virginia. That rainfall is going to be sizable. and then it slides just south of southern New England, getting Cape Cod fairly hard. I think this is a doable scenario. The other outcome through all of this is that this is going to actually bring down some rather cool air probably later next weekend and going into the following week. So this storm is going to be a catalyst in the atmosphere to bring down some rather cool, dry air out of Canada. And one of the other things that struck me, we talked through all of this about the moving gear parts in the upper air, and this is once again why you have to be really skeptical sometimes when you look at some of the longer range possibilities with these sorts of things, and you get wrapped up in stuff that's out day 6 and day 7 and beyond. And you've seen how much it changed here, even when we were inside the day 5 time frame. Now, the timing of the short waves, of course. So here's your, just backing it up, and the maps are still loading, so I apologize for that. But you see that first short wave that comes through for Monday, and that opens up the door to the south. You still have ridging, though, off in the Atlantic. You have a ridge that's trying to build eastward from the southern plains, but ultimately that northern jet is going to be a bit too much, and Dorian responds to that by moving northward. And then you have a second short wave on Wednesday, and then you start to turn it to the northeast, and then there's a third short wave at the end of the week. And we'll have to watch how this evolves, because if that short wave is deeper and faster, it could perhaps mean a more northerly course further up. On the other hand, if it's a little flatter, it takes a little longer to come out. It could shoot it out to the east-northeast a bit quicker. So there's a lot of open possibilities down the road with this. And again, at least for future reference, when you look at these tropical systems and you look at the long range, and remember it for the wintertime, variability expands out like a V. So the further out in time you go, the more variables that you're going to have in the atmosphere to deal with, and the more possibilities exist. That's why when you ask a question about something 7 or 8 days out, particularly when you're talking about a storm situation, it's almost impossible to be specific. It's different if you're under a big upper high and there's no sign of that upper high breaking down anytime soon. It's pretty easy to forecast a sunny day in the middle of May. It's not that. It's a whole lot more difficult when you're dealing with storms and all the variables that go with that. So I guess in summary, at this point, we're just going to watch the observations and the satellites and the radars and see how it all plays out. And we're going to, of course, continue our coverage here. I pushed my YouTube live stream. I was going to do it at noon, and then I decided to wait till the afternoon weather models are all done and push the live stream back to sometime this evening. It just makes more sense. I did weather in 5, and now you've got weather in 10 up here. So we'll do our YouTube live stream this evening after we absorb the evening advisory, and go forward from there. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you later.